Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk, and I'm Yu Tsai. And today, my guest is my colleague and friend, fashion and celebrity photographer. And you must have seen his work on billboards and many magazines. He's a acclaimed photographer who have shot just about anyone that's who's who in Hollywood. So let's welcome my friend, photographer, Randall Slavin. Hi, Randall.
Hey, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Where are you right now?
Oh, I'm in my house in Studio City.
Oh, we're local.
Yeah, I'm born and raised. I'm not leaving.
Well, I'm so excited to have you with me today because today's going to be a great day. It's like two friends who haven't seen each other for a while. We get to catch up a little.
Yeah, I know, it's great. That's what I told people. I said, at the end of the day, this will be a very fun conversation.
And it will be. And for those of you guys who just joined us, Randall and I actually know each other for about 10 years, I would say. Maybe 11. We're dating ourselves a little bit. Both of us kind of broke into the industry late in our lifetime.
I think we both had other careers we were going and doing, and then all of a sudden this thing presented us and we both went another way. I don't think a lot of people know that about you.
Well, I think they do now. But on this show, everybody always asks, how did you become a photographer? Now, I try to give them the shortest answer possible, and that is, I was trained as a wildlife biologist. And I think that training was to teach me how to train wild animals and work with wild animals, which leads into working with crazy people in Hollywood, right? That's kind of my training.
Yeah, it leads you into working with celebrities and public.
And what about you? What was your career path that took you to photography?
I wanted to be, I was an actor. I wanted to be well, first I wanted to be a rock star, but that wasn't cards. And then I was, wanting to be an actor since I was young, and I was doing that, but not doing it well. But it's like you said, it's certain things that in me trying to be an actor in that world definitely played into my successes as a photographer.
Mm. Well, you were surrounded by celebrities when you were doing acting, so you already know how a celebrity behaves and how they, and I say behave not in a way, a bad way or good way, but how they maneuver themselves on set and what they need. And a lot of people don't realize that working with celebrities is not just about photographing them. And I want to have that discussion with you because both of us kind of share a lot of same clients. And both of us are very different the way we are on set, and we're a completely different way we approach photography. Let's start with you. When you get a project to shoot someone that's very well known, what is your process?
Well, a lot of times, sadly, I will immediately Google them because I have no idea who they are. But what I like to do is I'll try to read some stuff on them personally. I'll try to figure out some little thing that I can hook into that will be a commonality that I can relate to them. Because I like to connect and I like to talk with the people I'm shooting. So I'll try to find something, whether it's their taste in music or someone they've worked with or some sort of commonality. That's really the only research I do if I don't already know something about them.
So connecting with them, really trying to find something that you have a common bond so you can connect and you can have a conversation with them.
Like I was shooting Michael J. Fox years ago, who I grew up worshiping Michael J. Fox. And I knew he was a big guitar player and a big fan of rock and roll. So when we started working together, I asked him a question about like who is the best guitar player he's ever seen live. And so the entire day we would just talk. He's like, oh, have you ever seen Richie Blackmore? And I'd be like, oh, you ever seen Jack White? And it was that, back and forth all day. And it was that sort of bond between us. At the end of the shoot, he goes, next time you come to New York, bring your guitar, we'll jam. And I was like, I don't play, I'm just a fan. And I was so bummed because I would have loved to be like, oh yeah, give me your number, let's hang out, But so that's what I do. I do research about what they're into.
Well, for me, it's all so much more technical. I get really more concerned about how I'm going to capture them.
That's the last thing I'm the least technical photographer you'll meet.
Well, but your work is very technical. The amazing work with Charlize Theron, amazing work over the years. There's definitely, I'd say, there's a cinematic quality about your work that's very much a signature of Randall Slavin.
Yes, and I think that stems from coming out of the movie and TV world where those are the things that I was obsessed with was movies. So I saw things like movies and like they were always horizontal and it was always very cinematic. And so I think that's just how I saw things.
So is that always the way when you first begin shooting? Was that something that you want to capture, like a still moment from a film or a scene?
I don't think I recognized it at first, but after a while you sort of see patterns. And you've been shooting long enough, you're like, oh, I see what I tend to do. I forget who said it, but there's a great quote that I like that took me many years to understand. And that's a photographer said, we really take the same picture over and over.
I think we kind of do, but the subject matter allow us to evolve and change.
Correct. But for me, the overall theme, I was like, oh yeah, there's a definite theme of like what my pictures are.
That works really well when you're working for advertising clients and art directors that are looking for a certain type of genre of photographer. They'll gravitate toward that kind of work. Sure. And that's where I find that we're very different. Because I get really, because I came from a creative director background and as an art director, I get really concerned when I show up to shoot that somebody would say, oh, it's just a Yu Tsai shoot. Sure. Yeah, we always end up where we end up. But that's always in the back of my mind going, how do I make this one different? And over time, over 15 years of shooting, you are who you are, and you're going to capture what you love, and you have a palette that you love, just like these are the palette, these are the treatment, whether you're shooting film or converting into digital, there's a vernacular that stays with you.
Very much so. Like when you first started shooting, because I certainly did, when you first started shooting, did you, like I copied everybody I loved. I was like, oh, I'm this like Bruce Weber, and I'm going to do this like Ellen von Unworth, and they're terrible. Usually, they're pretty bad until because they're not you, and you're trying to find like because there's you can only do what is your sort of creative essence. I can shoot sort of things, but it's not going to be as good as what is true to me. I can fake it. I can give something good, but it's not going to be great.
For me, it was always very graphic because I'm a graphic design trained person. So in the very beginning, when I didn't have the vernacular of language in fashion, for example, I could not call out a Gucci from a Tom Ford. I can now, but in the very beginning, as an art director, we really didn't study that, right? We're looking at the picture and we're hoping the photographer would capture whatever the elements we want them to. So when I started shooting in the very beginning, I treated them like typography. I did treat them like graphic elements. I shot them like they were very much architecture. So from my early days of photography, for sure, it was very low angle, shooting everybody majestic and they're all up. And
everyone was a hero.
And that worked for me because everybody wanted to be a hero, right? I was lucky enough to realize that, and then because maybe it's the water I drink in Los Angeles, I always celebrated commercial work. And being an art director, I didn't work in the highbrow art directing, work with Tommy Hilfiger. That's still not highbrow. That's like the most fashion things I've done when I was doing art directing. So I really never gravitated toward that numeral, interview magazine highbrow. I love beautiful commercial work.
Yeah, I love commercial stuff. I've always wanted. I was never someone who was going to shoot for the edgy, or like back in nylon back in the day. I was never. My taste photographically were always very commercial. We're always Annie Leibovitz or Richard Avedon, or they were always those commercial people. Those. So that's what I liked. When I started, I just wanted to work for magazines. I didn't even think about advertising. Maybe I should have thought about advertising.
I started backwards. I started in advertising first.
Yeah.
And then somebody says, like my agent says, you really need to do editorial so your name can be out there. And then more art directors see your work. Because it's for those guys because when I get into photography, reason we do editorial, that really is our calling card. That's our business card. And back in the days, websites and all that wasn't as prevalent. And we're still sending out com cards and email wasn't the way people wanted to see your work. So being in magazines where publications are thousands on the newsstand, they were, if you on the cover of magazines and you have 5 covers that month, you're going to get covers again the next month because people then go, oh, we trust that everybody trusts him, we trust him. So it becomes a wave. And nowadays very different because nowadays we have to turn into how many likes did that picture get on Instagram.
I think it's also different. Like a lot of the younger photographers that I know, the idea, like when I started, I had a list of like 3 magazines I wanted to shoot for.
What were they?
Vanity Fair, Rolling Stone, and like GQ, and then like Sports Illustrated, Swim, But younger people, the idea of that being something they aspire to is not, it doesn't even cross their mind. Theirs is, I want to shoot for Gap and I want to shoot for Calvin Klein. It's all advertising because magazines don't mean as much in the world as they did when you and I were coming up.
Absolutely. The industry has evolved so much. We had to pivot how many times now just within the first 15 years of our career. And we know that not just in the way photography have progressed, but in the way we look at our subject matter, right? The Me Too movement really changed the landscape of how women want to be viewed. I shouldn't say shouldn't be viewed, but want to be photographed. And that vernacular changed over time because as we talked about Sports Illustrated last week was the cover launch for the magazine for our 2020 swimsuit. And when people pick up the magazine today and compared to 10 years ago, which I've been shooting for them for 11 years, it's completely 2 different magazines, right? Back then we were celebrating men to pick up the magazine. And now we really truly are trying to celebrate all inclusivity and embrace gender, embrace sexuality, embrace height, short, tall, skinny, and age. Ageism is something that really happens in our industry too. And so that's really something that I find now more than ever most comfortable as a photographer because it takes everybody down to a common denominator of kindness. I find it that this is where I probably would excel even further if this is where we were in the beginning, because I don't know about you. When I first started shooting, because we're both from Los Angeles, there's a stigma of, oh, you're an LA photographer.
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely that. You're an LA photographer. That means you retouch way too much and, your styling's not great. And there's still that stigma. I mean, they keep saying it's going to go away, but they also keep saying the big quake is coming.
Well, the thing is that back then, I think 15 years ago, we're still seeing 75% of cover magazine with Daria Weaver. We have Kate Moss still gracing the cover of U.S. Vogue, which didn't make any sense because nobody was buying Kate Moss in America, but that was the vernacular that is the elite. But when we begin to see when Sienna Miller has a newsstand, 10 years ago with Tessino shot her in Paris as a commercial cover, a celebrity cover, a September cover, that was a moment it changed the landscape. For me, it's when I, as an art director at that moment, I said, my days are coming.
Really?
Because of all the people who said, oh, you shoot celebrity, you're not a real photographer. That's when I knew the tide was changing. And that's when I really embraced on shooting celebrity. There was definitely 3 years I turned down all editorial job with models because it wasn't going to bring the cash to support my staff. It wasn't going to support my lifestyle. And all, guys, photographers, we don't do this for fun. Yes, it's fun, but it's our living. we do this for a living. So when people call you and say, can you shoot me? Basically, you ask me to show up and work for free. It's like your boss calling you and say, can you come in to work for free? And most of the time you're going to say no, right? So I'm just being honest. It is true.
Do you do shoots for free if it's a personal thing that you want to do?
I'll be honest, I set up my career in a very strategic way because I came from advertising in New York. When I came back to Los Angeles after I had built a small book, I made a rule not to test in LA. I never tested once in Los Angeles because I didn't want the stigma of Los Angeles agency treated me like I am from LA. Therefore, they're going to give me young actors, maybe models, maybe they'll become somebody because we'll have a lot of them. And I wanted to really be focused on shooting only New York models. So if New York models came into LA for vacation, you saw that, I was very strategic. I was like, I'm going to have less is more, and I'm going to shoot the ones that I truly believe is going to be great. And there are ones that people go, you're crazy. Kate Upton, for example, right? People thought it was insane shooting her. And people like, have agency like, oh, we're not going to give you models because you don't really understand what models are. Because you're shooting Kate. Why are you shooting Kate? She's and look at her now, right? But
yeah, I wish I was as strategic as that beginning my career, but I was not. I just sort of stumbled into it and put one foot in front of the other, and then 15 years had gone by.
But Randall, there's something about you is very different too. That you have this charisma. You got tattooed. You're the cool guy. You walk into the room, people are like, dude, he has history. I walk into the room, I'm gonna be like, I speak English, guys. Like it's a different dynamic. And being a photographer truly are like rock stars. When I look up to photographers, they're like gods.
Yeah, there was a certain era where being a photographer was the next best thing to being a rock star.
Remember Gavin Bond?
Sure.
I remember when I was
student of photographers that came before me, unlike I was ever a student in school. Like, I know them all. I know their work. I know their editorials. I mean, I was obsessed with photography, and the people who came before me and that I started looking at, like, they mean more to me than anything. I know all those people.
Well, with all this knowledge of learning from the history of arts and photography, now 15 years later, what truly inspired you as a photographer?
Well, things have changed. The things that inspired me when I started are very different than the things that inspire me now. The things that inspire me now are taking pictures of people who I find interesting. What inspires me is shooting somebody that I want to connect with, that I want to talk to. And shooting is just really an excuse. How can I get in a room with that person and talk to them? And so that's what inspires me. If I can meet somebody who's from a different world than I am, or a different anything, that's what inspires me. Whereas before it was much more about aesthetics, about someone who's good looking or interesting or famous. Whereas now it's like I shot a safecracker recently that I met, who was incredibly interesting and physically was very interesting, but he's a safecracker, which is very different than a locksmith, and he will tell you that. But like things like that interest me, like that's a very different thing than I was 15, 20 years ago.
Well, I remember one of the work that you have done. I think you can disagree or not, but it was a pivotal moment. I think you really put your stamp in the fashion and celebrity world. It was a book that you put together with Fawn Magazine with Charlize Theron. I remember then when that landed on my desk, and I hadn't even begun to shoot for them at that time. It was on my bucket list because in Los Angeles, Fawn was the only few fashion magazine that was celebrating celebrities as well as models. And when I saw your work, the collection of every single page of those pictures were incredible. I want to talk a little bit about that relationship because a lot of people, I think, think that we all like best friends and BFF with all these people we photograph. And but in those images, I truly felt like you were in this space with her and you guys really connected.
Well, we were. I mean, that's the truth. We were. I mean, we shot that. I forget when we shot that, but we were very, very close, and we were very close before I was a photographer and before she was an actress. So we did have that intimacy that probably came across in that shoot. And it's very you don't get a lot of those moments where you can say this is a defining moment that changed my career. And that job with Louis Barajas at Flaunt changed my life completely. And it's still to this day the most well-known picture I've ever taken. It's an old shoot, but it's still on my website.
But it's so timeless. It could have been shot. It could have been numeral. It could have been interview. It could have been V Magazine.
That's the thing I wanted to do is I whenever I was shooting celebrities, even if they were some little magazine that no one had heard of, I was like, and I would say this to everybody, I was like, we're shooting this like it's in W. I want this to, we're shooting this like this is the biggest thing in the world. And I wanted to have that aesthetic. And that shoot was one of the rare times where everything came together beautifully. And I think that like it's very rare that every element works. Usually there's a couple that are off, you know, and when everything works, the location, the hair, the makeup, the subject, your crew, and everything comes together is when the shoot elevates. And it's rare. I mean, I've had maybe a handful of them in my whole career that I would say all the elements work and there wasn't a link in it, and that's definitely one of them. And uh, it's stayed around in the consciousness because of Charlize, you know, and because she's done so well for herself, you know. But you know,
Well,
back to your original question, yeah, unlike what you were saying, we were actually really close, and that's how I was able to get so much from her. But it's not often. That's not the norm.
and for you guys have not yet seen this editorial, Google Randall Slavin and make sure you look at Charlie Theron. What I love about that work is that it's actually it taught me something not just about photography. It taught me about investing into your photography. And I said that because when that came out, I called my agent and said, how did Randall shoot this? How did she get this studio? He goes, you want to shoot for Flaunt? And I want to just spill the tea right now, you guys. They don't pay. In fact, you're almost paying them.
No.
Just being honest, because if you come up with a production idea that you like and you have the finance to fund it, and you have a celebrity that you can bring on board, which Randall had the blessing of Charlize, and you can create this opportunity for you. And people often say photography is a rich person's hobby, and I'm not going to discount that because I saved my money. I saved my money from my previous career to invest in my new career. Did it hurt for years in the first 5 years of just like, okay, I'll show up for this magazine, and yes, I will not take a fee and just, in fact, paying my assistants to show up. And we all do that. Just so you know, we all do that. And
that shoot, you know, it's a lot to do with my agent at the time, Maria, who made it happen with Lewis and said, hey, we should shoot Charlize for the Flaunt. And I also recognized the opportunity. I recognized the idea that this could be incredible. And this is one of those that is worth investing. And that shoot cost me like $25,000. So I was very lucky I had that at that time. And because once we did the shoot, which cost a lot, Lewis
had to print it.
Lewis, it wasn't originally going to be a book. And then Lewis is like, let's do a book. Let's do a book. And I was like, okay. And that cost an extra $17,000, which he's like, well, you got to pay for it. And I was like, but I recognized, I was like, this will be worth it. And I would do it again tomorrow if it was offered to me again with somebody of that caliber. I would do it again tomorrow because there's certain ones that are worth it and there's certain ones that aren't. And I've gambled on the wrong side before. I was like, oh, this isn't worth putting money in. And I've gambled on the right side sometimes as well.
I love that you said that because it's a nice segue about a client that we share with is Nick Jonas. And funny enough, years and years ago when they were the Jonas Brothers and they were in New York, and my agent called me and said, listen, these 3 kids, love for you to shoot them. They really like your work. And I go, then they have to pay for my travel. He goes, no, there's no budget. You're going to have to invest in this one. You know, you're going to have to fly yourself out. And at the time, I was like, no, I'm not going to invest in them. Who are they anyways? And of course, they became the Jonas Brothers. They blew up. And funny enough, 10 years later, you know, Nick always remembered my work back then and gave me another opportunity to make it right and reach out again and said, listen, I'm in LA. Would you like to work with me? And he, like Charlie's done for you, really changed me in a really pivotal way in photography. And
I also think that your shoot of Nick changed his career as much as he changed yours. I mean, it was a very symbiotic relationship because I didn't know who he was until your picture of him in Flaunt came out. I didn't know who he was as an adult. You know, I went to a Jonas Brothers concert with my niece, so I knew who he was. But like your picture changed his career and everything after that.
And that has to do with the fact that I really truly love rebranding And that's what the agency I was working at with Arnell Group was all about, taking a brand like Donna Karan and make it more relevant than Donna, what people think Donna Karan's, or Tommy Hilfiger, and pair it with Britney Spears, put sunglasses Ray-Ban together with Men in Black. And that was what Arnell Group was all about. Branding and rebranding and repositioning. So with the success with Kate Upton, you know, her name become synonymous. Everybody knows her, and she became a movie star at that time. And Nick's team reached out and said, "Would you like to rebrand him into an adult?" And when that happens, when I hear those buzzwords like rebranding, absolutely. But then there's a rule, right? And I said, can he trust me 110%? He has to let me to push him so far that he's uncomfortable. However, I'll give him approval on kills on images. There is a symbiotic relationship. He had to approve the photo before I could turn him into the magazine, right? So it's a lot of him. It was gutsy.
But you earned that trust from him in the sense of, you know, he gave you that, but you also gave it back to him by saying, "I'll let you approve of it."
And we both have that relationship.
You'll like it so much, you can approve of it.
Absolutely. And we both have that relationship with Nick, and we shoot him very differently. And I think that's what's so beautiful about having clients that we share, that when I see how you shoot, I remember there was one project we're both up for. And it was a graphic background. It was a really cool spaceship idea. And I remember they're like, "Yu Tsai, can you put a treatment together?" Randall's also doing it. I'm like, mine's gonna be like graphic design, and I'm gonna like Photoshop it in. And you came out with this shoot. I didn't get the job, and you got the job, and it was so beautiful. It was like music video, Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson back in the day kind of visual. And I could never have came up with that because it wasn't in my wheelhouse.
Right. You know, I think the thing is, it's funny when I first shot Nick. You know, it's advice I would give any photographer is I never turn down shooting musicians. I never turn down shooting musicians, even if it's no money or little money, because musicians shoot a lot, much more so than actors do. And musicians are always shooting stuff, and they have a lot more things that need publicity than actors do. So I never turned, and Nick, it was a little editorial I did. We got along really well. He called me for another thing. We did it. Then I remember you shot him for something, and I remember I got really upset. Then I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. Yu Tsai shot him before I did." So I sort of took him from him, and then he took it back. So that's okay. I'm okay with that. But like, I get really territorial about people I shoot. You know, I get really like, especially if I shot them young. I'm like, "No, that's my person. You can't shoot that." Even though it's like, you know.
And I think at the end of the day, the talent really get to choose how they want to feel that day. How they, you know, and he definitely goes back and forth between you and I when it's like super cinematic. The New York shoot you did with him on the street.
Yeah.
Incredible, right? For me, I would have been like, I would never take Nick out on the street because people would come and bother my shoot, like all this preconceptual idea. But I remember you talked about that shot in one of your Instagram posts. It was the last shot of the day. The sun was amazing.
The shoot was not going well. And it was just, you know, Nick is very, like, I couldn't get a beat on him when we started shooting for the first time. He's very quiet. I couldn't get, and then I was like, oh, he's just really polite. And he's really well raised. And I'm not used to that with my subjects. So I did, and then the shoot wasn't really clicking. The pictures were good, but they weren't great. But I always take people, I always do this at the end of the shoot. I say, let's just go out on the street and walk around. And that's when the shoot came alive, when I got him moving and those are by far the most interesting shots from that day. And that sort of started our relationship. And I mean, I'm just so happy where he's gone, and it's crazy.
It's insane. It's crazy. Well, now we have both grown so much in this industry, and we all change and evolve as a magazine world change, as a request of all work changes and advertising aesthetic changes. What is the core work that you would love to see yourself be remembered of?
Oh man, I think the stuff that I've done over the last couple years, which is very different than everything I did for the 15 previous, is the stuff. Well, I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I mean, because there's part of me that thinks, oh, the little snapshots that I took running around Hollywood when I was in my 20s, those will outlive any commercial photography I did. Those are more interesting and more unique than any portrait I did of some actor or actress. But I don't know. The most recent stuff I've been doing, which is just a real stripped down, raw, very intimate portrait stuff, is my favorite stuff, and the stuff that I think will last and will be timeless.
Has to do with the subject matter as well. Doesn't it? This has to do with the subject matter. I know you're working on a project that's for a few years with the victims of Dr. Nasser.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because when opportunity calls for something like that, as somebody at your caliber who's have shot everyone in the industry, and somebody calls you and say, listen, we'd love for you to put a spotlight on these women and empower them and photograph them. That's an incredible honor in all the industry. And not everybody jump and say, yes, we'll do it. Because that's not a money job. I can already know it's going to be, and there's a lot of work.
I did not make a penny from that shoot, for the record. But,
But before you jump into it, Randall, give us a little bit of background how this project came about. And because I think at this time that what we're going through, we all need to seek out moments like that and create and help the people around us.
It was the late Maura Mant, who passed away earlier this year. She produced and ran the ESPYs for years and really turned that into such a thing. And she called me and said, hey, for the ESPYs this year, do you know anything about the Larry Nassar case? And I was like, yeah, of course. How do you not? She goes, well, it's a big secret, but don't tell anybody. We're giving the Arthur Ashe for Courage Award to like 200 survivors of sexual assault from. Would you like to shoot them? And I was like, yes, how, when, I would, of course, how do I not? I mean, that's everything that you asked what inspires me. And the opportunities like that are the things that excite me in a very different way than the photography that excited me 15 years ago. The idea. So she said, would you like to do this? And I was like, done, great. I didn't ask about like, is there a rate? Is, what's the usage? Do I, can I send it? It was just, yes, I want to do that. And so we arranged it, and it was a very interesting day, because we only had 2 hours to shoot everybody. And it was like 200 people or something like that, 150 women. And when you start out, you want to sort of connect with each person who comes in. But there was a line out the studio of these women, and they were like, you need to go. And so at the end, and you want to be respectful to the person who's standing in front of you, because you're not, and it was difficult, because besides you want to be respectful to the journey these women are on and not feel exploitative. You also don't want to be maudlin and have shot 200 sad pictures. It sort of went in a photographic journey throughout the day of like wanting people to be proud. And I really tried to connect, even if it was only for 2 seconds, with somebody, to find out where they were from and to get a sense of like where they were at. Were they happy? Were they like proud to be there? Did they feel like survivors? Did they feel like victims? And it was it was a very tough day. It was very satisfying creatively and emotionally, and satisfying as a human being. But photographically, it was difficult. And it's something I'm very proud of. I think it's on my website. If not, it will be after this thing airs. I'll go put it on.
Well, one of the things that photographer like you and I think we're very empath in the way that we work. Some people show up, click the picture, they don't speak to their models. A lot of photographers, back in the days especially, are very quiet observers. They can stand there and wait till the person do something. Annie Leibovitz is that way. She'll set the camera up, and I've been on her set before. I watch how she works. Yeah. She'll make the moment so uncomfortable, and the actors or actress will move and ready to leave, and she'll click that image and say, I got it.
I do think there's something interesting in what she says, where someone asked her, it's in her masterclass, where someone asked her, how do you put your subjects at ease? And she goes, I don't. That's not my job. which
well, that has to do with her personality. I'm sorry, but
Correct.
she's not a type of person who put anybody at ease. I'm not knocking it. Everybody's personality is different. Her personality is not that.
I hear that. I hear that. The one time I met her, she was very kind to me. She was very kind to me. But I've heard that about her. But I also respect the idea of like, because I think there is a natural thing of like, oh, I'm going to put you at ease. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make this the prettiest picture you've ever taken. Where she's like, that's not my job. Mm-hmm. My job is to make the most interesting picture.
Right.
And I respect that. It
Absolutely.
might not be what I do, but I respect someone who's like, I don't need to be friends with you. Avedon was like that. Avedon was like, I'm not going to take the prettiest picture of you. I'm going to take the most interesting. And it's interesting. I think the myth of a photo capturing the subject's soul, or you really captured the essence. No, a photograph captures what I think you are, not what you are. It's what I think you are. And if I think you're an asshole, you're going to look like an asshole in my picture. If I think you're the most beautiful, sexy, interesting person, that will come through. But it's really my view of who you are that I'm taking a picture of.
I love you said that, because in the camera there's a viewfinder. In the viewfinder there's a mirror. And what we as photographers do is that we're actually mirroring ourselves most of the time. Mm-hmm. If I wake up pissed off that day, the picture comes off a little pissed off that day. And I get it. And I think because you're the cool guy, I'm the crazy one, I'm the fun one, whatever that may be, evokes different kind of emotions. And because what the industry likes to pigeonhole us as well, when they call Randall, they know they're going to get a beautiful set, they're going to get smoke, they're going to have a whole thematic, dramatic, walking through the fire guy. And when you get me, you're going to get them to wear less clothes as possible and be as sexy as they want to be, Yeah. And I think that's what's very interesting, how our work have evolved, because we got to a place that I think we're both very comfortable with what we do technically. Sure. And we allow our subject to really dictate what that day is going to become and how do we celebrate that day together. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you, I feel like my most recent work is definitely the work that I'm most proud of in terms of imagery capturing. I'm proud of the 15 years of models I got to work with, and most proud of discovering models that nobody thought would become anyone and become mega stars. I love that. I do love that ride. But now I'm on a journey where you're on, trying to find what inspires me. And I don't know, truly, I couldn't tell you what that is, because, I'm not out there. I'm not a guy who some photographer who just can't stop shooting, right? Even during this time, they're shooting their friends. They have a camera, and Brian Bowen Smith has been on here, and he talks about him going off on the road to shoot people in Texas or whatever. I can't pick up the camera.
I barely shot. I did not take this time away as a time to shoot more. I took time as a blessing to, what else can I learn? What else can I try to do? I don't need to learn more photography. I was like, I'm not going to try to find some COVID photo exhibit. No, this was not about, I barely shot in this time since we closed down.
But the last 2 years work with Nasser, and you have so many special projects that you hide underneath that hat of yours that we don't even know about. And that's what's incredible, because one thing about photographers, we definitely all need to find something else other than the commercial aspect of our work to fuel us. Some people, like, I have to cook. Food is absolutely the counterbalance of my photography, and that's what makes me happy. When I'm not happy with photography, I cook, and I'm not happy with cooking, I go back to photography. That's the kind of way I fuel myself. And it's interesting to see how photographers will develop now and over time. And especially, there is a trend in New York now that the photographers of this generation are shooting film again.
The worst.
I think actually,
I don't miss it. I don't know if you can tell, but I don't miss it at all.
Well, a magazine actually talked to me last week and said, hey, do you want to shoot film? Because that's a new trend. And I said, well, first of all, I'm not a trendy photographer, number one. Number two, I can add grains to the digital that looks like film. Number three, if you want me to shoot non-tethered so you don't see the monitor, you don't trust me that much, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. If you want to shoot film, I can shoot digital and convert it back into film and print it out for you, and you can pay for that film. But I don't understand the notion of it. I think it's just spontaneity, and you just keep clicking.
I think people want what came before them. You know, and people are longing for, like I was talking with somebody and they're like, oh, and I said, everything that you love about photography is the thing that or you love about film was the thing we desperately tried to get rid of when we could film. The fact that you love you love the grain and the light leak sometimes. I was like, and how it's underexposed and it looks really flat. And I was like, I don't have any camera nostalgia. Like my cameras are only tools. I trade them out for whatever works better for me. I don't, oh, this is my beautiful Pentax I've been using. They're only tools to get what I want. And film is the same thing. I know I sound like that grumpy old man in the Muppet Show balcony. I know, but I don't share that.
Well, not following the trend is definitely you. So what's next for you? What is the next venture that you would like to tap into?
You know, I always have projects. I always, you know, I've been doing that for years. We'll always be working on a photo series of something. So I'm always shooting stuff that no one knows about, whether it's portraits of things. But what do I want to do? I would love to, it seems like it's a logical outgrowth of what I've been doing, but I would love to make a documentary. You know, I would love to make a movie, a documentary, because it seems like if I could make my portraits talk, like if I could connect even more with my subjects, they would talk back to me. So that's really something in the last year that I've really tried to focus on. And I don't want to make like movies, like narrative movies or anything like that, but if I could, there's subjects I would love to make a documentary about. There's other things, you know, like there's an unscripted show that is, after my book came out, got proposed to me that I'm really excited about. So, you know, ideally, the still photography part of my life will become just a part of my life in the next few years and not my entire life. I'll always shoot. I always shot before I was getting paid. I'll always shoot because I love doing it, and I do miss it when I don't do it. But there's a lot of other things, and I never thought I would want to do anything else. But there's a lot of other things I want to do. You know, do we have time? I want to talk to you about one thing.
We do.
Okay, and you impressed me a lot, and this is a little flattery time for Yu Tsai. People don't know, I did a Coca-Cola campaign years ago, a Coke Zero campaign that Yu Tsai was actually like creative directing or something like that, weren't you?
Yes.
And we had a pre-light day, and it was not going well. And I was shooting, and you were there. The whole crew was there, and we weren't getting. And Coca-Cola, we were sending images back to Atlanta, and I was stressed out. It was a big advertising job. I was really stressed out. And Coca-Cola wanted to have a phone call with everybody. And I watched you take off your photographer, your gregarious, out of my mind, sort of loud persona. And I saw you put on your corporate business creative director hat. And I remember going, that's why he's as successful as he is. Because hearing you talk to non-creative corporate Coca-Cola executives in the way you did, I was like, I need to learn that. Because I was like, I do not have that, and I need that. And I never told you that, but I remember going, that's why he's as successful as he is, because it was like a lightning bolt to me of what I lacked.
Well, thank you so much for that. But part of the story that people should know, my art direction at the time was actually why we needed a conference call, because it was actually what I thought what Coca-Cola should be or Coca-Cola Zero should be. And being a creative director for that brand for 4 years, I was locked into a certain type of look and feel. And when the executive wanted us to shoot Coke Zero, they offered me that I could shoot it, or I should hire another photographer who will bring a different aesthetic. And it was a picture you shot of David Beckham that really grabbed it. They saw that one singular image, like, this is it. This is the photographer we want to shoot. I couldn't understand at the time. So when we did the test light day, reason it was so stressful for you because you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing, which is you. You were doing what Yu Tsai would do for Coca-Cola for the last 5 years because it's been branded that way. And I remember on that call, Jonathan, who's been working with me by then 3 years, says, let him shoot the way he was shooting. Yeah. Just let's see what he would do.
Very simple adjustment. I just took the light from here, moved it up here.
That was it. I remember it very well.
And you were like, all right, there it is.
You're like, can I do this? I go, you know what? I'm going to just sit back and I'm going to let you do it. And reason also because, you know, Coca-Cola is such an incredible experience because it's casting or street casting. We find dancers. These are not models. And you were connecting with all of them already. And they were getting frustrated because, you know, as an art director, I'm going, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. And I try to hide that emotion away from them and start talking to them, dancing with them, trying to keep the energy up. But you're right. It took that conference call and it took me to say, you know what? I got to take that hat off. And that call was so important because I did have to take a photographer hat off and sit back and let you do your thing. And it's still some of the most beautiful work, commercial work that we've done. You know, I was so proud of that campaign because it was so important for people to know that I can step aside and let other people shoot campaign that I'm art directing. And we've done that many times since with other photographers who have shot Coca-Cola.
Yeah. It's an interesting lesson that when you that photographers need to know that when you hit a certain level, you need to be a businessman. And you need to realize that you're not talking to creatives. You're not sitting in some bar in Greenpoint talking about an editorial. You're dealing with people who have hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, and you need to talk to them like they can understand you. And that's what I learned from you. And you were so concise, and you were so, it was a very eye-opening experience for me.
And I love that lesson that people watching can learn is that, because I came from advertising, I came from sitting in the room listening to Ted Waits, who owns Gateway, or the president of Samsung. And yes, we can be as ethereal as we want. We paint a picture how we're going to show as an artist. At the end of the day, they're like, how are we going to sell computers? Who's going to buy my TV? So if you start going, you know, we're going to do this, but you're really not saying anything.
Just trust me.
And one thing that people, I love this point you make, is one thing that people do forget as an artist is that it took a long time for somebody in an office, in a studio, to come up with a singular concept got approved by many, many layers of people, and even shareholders, right? Approved for process. So by the time you as a photographer gets hired by the art director to tell you this is what we want, when you show up and you start being arrogant and think you know more than them, that's when you don't get hired again. So we try to push the boundaries, but you gotta remember this. You're there to do a job. You can do that on editorial. You can do that on your own work. But when it comes to advertising, they see something in you to capture that moment. Give them that moment, and that's what I had to learn from Coca-Cola too. I'm all right. That David Beckham picture, just go. I need 10 of those. 10 different models. Let's do it. And thank you for reminding me of that, because that is true, and I'm very blessed that I did go into the photography business as a business. And that was a strategic positioning. And the reason for that is I was a commercial director. And the work that I was doing is super expensive. Every single commercial you want me to direct has to be a minimum of $5 million because I was doing special effects work. Everything to do with, you know, dove flying with pigs, whatever. It's all very ethereal. It's all very cinematic, very, you know, it was just at the time, that's what everybody wanted. And when the money ran out, when the economy changed, I couldn't get work. Because everybody's doing single camera work, multi-camera wasn't getting any jobs. So I sat back and I literally had to decide, as a businessman, what do I need to do next? And that's where photography came. So it wasn't that I wanted to be a photographer when I was young.
Yeah, I didn't. How do you navigate, because it's tough, because when you're doing, and I want to ask you this, when you're doing these jobs with that are big advertising creative jobs, or even if it's a big editorial for a magazine or something that you respect, it's a fine line, because how do you navigate when you want to stand up for what you want to do and your vision, but you also are like, but I can't upset you enough that you never want to work with me again. I can't be rude. I can't, but I need to stand up for what I believe in and what is my vision. You know, how do you navigate that fine line of pleasing the client, but also standing up for what you want?
Well, first of all, how much you pay me to keep my mouth shut?
Yeah, the higher budget, the more you will shut the fuck up. That's a good point.
Truly, you know, it's like, how much do I care about this relationship? And at the end of the day, I will do what they want me to do. Then I ask them, can I show you how I will approach it? Now, it's 50-50. Sometimes they're like, you're right, that's great. Or they say, no, that's not what we want. We've done this before. A lot of time they already done test shoots. Advertising done like comms and test shoots. Like, I show up with Pantene and I go, this is what I think hair should be, more this way. And they're like, dude, we already done so much like focus groups. We know what angle she looks best for everyone. Just do what we're asking you to do.
That's a good point that I don't think I even really thought about, or a lot of other people don't realize, is the journey before you got on set is so extensive, is so vast, that you are just the final cog in a very big wheel.
And that's one of the reasons that, like you said, I was able to capture the commercial world quickly, because I sit in rooms and through a glass window, one-way window, watching focus group people clicking a TV commercial going, oh, they like that scene. And you ask them why. They're like, oh, because it's yellow in there. Like these obscure things that then gets written down into a corporate Bible. We have to have 5% yellow on that scene, 10% Black people, 5% Asian people, and then Asian people should be dancing, and Black people should be playing basketball. All the racist stuff that you hear from focus group is why we have what we see out there. But it becomes this horrible Bible. Then you, for me at least as an immigrant, I show up and try to break those stereotypes. Right? I go, okay, I'll give you this. And I joke about this before. When we shoot Coca-Cola, I wanted to make sure that we shot multi-race, right? You saw that there's all different race. Yeah. And there's always a question of, is that person Asian enough? And I would say, when I make him smile, he'll be Asian enough. You know? But this is a conversation that people don't know that we have and what we have to do, because they have done their first focus group. And that's truly because of advertising training that I have for 6 years. I mean, I worked in that field for 6-7 years. And another training is working with Steve Jobs, having to shoot Apple for 6 years or 7 years. That was a very incredible experience, because he had a system that we would shoot on Monday, he reviews it by Wednesday, and then there would be a reshoot on Friday. And you shoot all different variations. He knows what he wants. He edits it. By the time you get to his team, they send a comp over on Friday. The following Monday, you shoot that campaign all over again. It could be such a minute adjustment. And literally, it would be, I don't like that sleeve on that shirt. Change. And we would do that all around the clock for months until we get those billboards that you see in New York subways or Sunset Boulevard with a little finger that's literally doing this with a little bit of sleeve right here. And you have no idea how long it took to create that. And by the way, you might recognize the finger.
Was it that finger right there?
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
But those are the journeys, right? Those are the incredible stories and journey that we get to have along the way. But I appreciate mostly it's a journey that you're on now, discovering what you're passionate about. And I'm getting there. You know, having this talk show, having this offline conversation with you a couple of days ago, it inspired me so much, knowing that I'm doing something at least other people think I'm on the right path or something. I don't know what that is yet personally. It's just a journey for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can feel it when you're on the right path. You can feel if things feel easy, if it doesn't feel like you're swimming upstream, if people are sort of responding to it in a way you're like, oh, I didn't really expect that. You know, I think those are all signs that you're on the right path. Well,
I have to say you're one of the right path for me, because, you know, over the last 3 months, we're almost at 100 guests over the last 3 months. We've been on this thing for a while. And every single guest thus far has been to reach out through DMs or phone numbers or friendships or relationship. There's no booking agents. And when you wrote me, you text me and you said, I want to be on your show. I went, what? Nobody, at that time, nobody texted me, said they want to be part of it, because part of me was very insecure. I'm all, oh, people watching this think I'm crazy because I'm treating this like a real job. Because to me, it's a real job, right? And when that happened about a month ago, the wave started changing. Then I began to get a flood of, you felt it and you let me know it. And then everybody started coming in and I'm beginning to get talents that, yes, I pinch myself and go, holy crap. Did Lisa Ling just talk to me for an hour? You know, stuff like that. It's still like, whoosh.
It's a thing. But you're good.
Thank you to be part of it.
You're good at it.
Well, I can talk to you forever, but Instagram's gonna cut us off. So they do. But thank you so much. And we're gonna, so one of the things I'm going to do, we talked about this a little bit, and for those guys who are listening, that we are going to convert all these talks I've been doing to podcast way so people can listen to the best of the best. And a lot of the conversation we can have, I'd love for you to come back and do a podcast with me just about journey of photography.
Buddy, you don't have to twist my arm to come get me talk about myself. Come on.
And for those you guys, some of the things that you don't know about Randall, you can Google him. He's a lot of movies. I love it. I love seeing you in film clips and those. It's amazing because it is American Dream. You've done it all, and yes, come on, Roseanne, guys, just Google him and Google Roseanne. I think I love. Weren't you on Stand By Me as well?
No, I was not on Stand By Me.
Well, you should. Why are you embarrassed of such amazing
the power of the internet, things never disappear.
But you know what? There was 1 month that you were posting these amazing scripts and had signatures of all these amazing actors that you have been in their presence. I think that education nobody else can have because
everything brought me to where I am. So I probably would not have. No, if I wasn't a struggling actor, I would never have become a photographer. It's a very direct chain. So obviously things were supposed to fall the way they fell.
Well, thank you so much. And you're falling into the right place at the right time. And I can't wait to see the next journey you're on. And maybe we'll do it together.
I'm in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you guys so much. I hope you were inspired by our conversation. What an amazing time to be able to share and catch up with somebody that we both have worked together and worked with the similar people in the industry and capturing people in such a different way. Do look up his work, an amazing contribution he's doing for his personal work with the victims and celebrate them from Larry Nassar's situation. And I think that fuels him. It's incredible. And I hope I find that journey soon as well. But thank you so much, you guys, for being here on weekdays. And that right now is my fuel to continue to be here and talk to you guys. And I so appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. And I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye-bye.